Hello, and welcome to today's episode of For Book's Sake. I'm Heather Roberts.
I'm Veronica Adams, and we are 1852 Media, despite the fact that for the next however long, we may also sound like Roberts and Adams, attorneys at law.
You're not wrong. Wow, this has probably been our longest prep for a podcast ever.
Hands down, we have spent way
Hands
more
down.
time on this episode than we have on any of the previous ones.
Yeah. Today, we are going to be talking about the Crave lawsuit. Okay. And we have read things. We have read a lot of things. So to give a little background, Veronica and I are both licensed attorneys. As a reminder,
we are not your attorneys.
Yes. As a reminder, we are not your attorneys, nor do we have any affiliation to the case that we were talking about today. We have never worked with any of the people in any capacity that are mentioned in the cases. I've read entangled books. I have.
Yep, that's about as close as I get to the case myself.
It is quite possible, I have to go back and look, but it's quite possible that we have represented authors who've had books published through Entangled. I think we have. However, that is not coloring our opinions today. And as a reminder, everything today is our opinions only. These are allegations. There has not been a ruling in this case. And so this is for entertainment purposes, and
we are editorializing and not giving advice. Neither of us are licensed in the jurisdiction where this case is taking place.
Correct.
All opinions are our own.
Correct. So to make sure that's very, very clear up front. So today we are talking about, like I said, the Crave lawsuit. For those that don't know, there was a lawsuit filed in May of 2022 by Lynn Freeman, who is an individual who lives in Alaska and or maybe spends some time in California as well. And she is also an attorney, but does not appear to be practicing currently either. She does not.
This so wild. The fact that she is a licensed or was a licensed attorney herself.
It is apparent from Google searching that it looks like she has an active license in Alaska, but that also not where this has been filed. She is not representing herself. As I said, she is represented in this lawsuit. So she filed the first amended complaint back in May of 2022. I believe the case was actually filed before that. Oh my God, yes. This docket.
Yes.
This docket. She filed in March.
Show the kids the paperwork, Heather.
Okay, so this is the docket. For those of you watching on YouTube, on the tube of you, the docket has been. I print things out. Okay, I need to see things. I understand a lot of people will read things on their iPads and stuff these days. I need to highlight. I just need to. So this docket has been printed on both sides because I'm trying to save a tree or two.
And each one of those boxes is an individual filing.
Yes.
In the case.
Yes. And this is insanity. Okay. Absolute fucking insanity, if I do say so.
There's somewhere between 7 and maybe 12 per page.
Yeah. We are on filing number 358. Okay. That's where the case ends as of 6/18/24. The last filing was a notice of change of address. Okay. That's what the last filing was on 6/18/24. Before that, March was the last filing, which was in relation to their motions for summary judgment, which we will get to.
Eventually.
You may want to sit down, grab a cup of coffee, grab some tea.
Yes, get your favorite beverage, get comfortable. This is going to take us a minute.
This is going to take a second. So get comfortable. You start a long cleaning job, whatever.
Yeah.
Get yourself together.
Yeah. That laundry that's sitting in the chair in your bedroom, go ahead and fold it. You've got time.
You've got time. We're here. We're here. Okay. So let's start with the complaint, because that's where a lot of, that's where this all started. With any complaint, okay, you are putting out the facts in the light most favorable to yourself.
Boy, that's
At
an
the time,
understatement.
yeah. At the time in which you were writing the complaint. Because you have to remember, when you're writing the complaint, you likely don't have all the facts. I'm
Well,
not even
right.
likely.
You're
You
just
don't
starting the
have all the facts.
lawsuit. You
Yes.
are not yet involved in discovery. There are no orders out there telling the people that you're suing to give you information related to your claims.
Right.
You are coming to the court and informing the defense of what it is you believe happened and what your interpretation of the facts are in the light most favorable to you and what you're seeking to have the court order the other parties to do.
Correct. So that's the complaint is usually inflammatory. Okay.
Almost always.
Almost always is the complaint inflammatory. And this one is no different. This one is quite inflammatory.
It's on fire.
The basic premise is that Lynn, we're just going to call her Lynn for sake of brevity. Lynn files a lawsuit against Tracy Wolfe. I'm going to use her pen name here. Tracy Wolfe, who is the author of Crave, the first book in a 6-book series. That is, I think I don't even know if does it have a series name, the Crave
I think
series.
it's the Crave
The
series.
Crave series. Okay. So there's a 6-book series, the Crave series, that was first published. Where are my notes?
2020.
2020. April 7th, 2020, the first book was published.
New York
Crave was
Times
published.
bestseller.
Yes. It was a #1 New York Times bestseller. The first book has 26,812 reviews on Amazon alone. Book's been read. Okay. That's the
Yes.
reviews. So we know
Lots of social proof here.
lots of social proof. As I said, there's been 6 books in the series, with the last book being published on May 30th, 2023. Okay. However, this lawsuit mostly has to do with the first 4 books. That's what we're talking about here. Last 2 books are not included, which, if you look at the timing,
The
this was
last 2 books had
filed.
not yet been published when this was
Correct.
filed, so
Yes.
the lawsuit predates the publication of the last 2 books. So
Correct.
not at least not yet. No pleadings have been amended.
No, please don't amend it.
Relevant to the claims in front of the court right now.
So Lynn has sued Tracy, as well as Emily Kim, who was Lynn's agent for a period of time. We're going to get into specifics on dates and all of that. Just trying to set up who we're talking about here. So Lynn sued Tracy, the author of Crave, Emily Kim, who is an agent, a literary agent, Prospective Agency LLC. That is the agency that Emily
owns.
worked for.
Yeah.
Okay. As well as Entangled Publishing. That is who published the book. Hold Spring Publishers, Macmillan, okay, who owns Entangled. Universal City Studios, because Crave has been, at the point of filing, has been optioned by Universal. And Crazy Maple Studios, they developed a game, an online game adaptation.
Oh, that's right, the game, right.
Yeah. Crazy Maple has since been released from this lawsuit and has been terminated from the lawsuit. I believe that Universal has been as well. I'd have to look at the docket. Hold, please. I can tell you. So we have.
Pleadings should be telling too.
Yeah. Macmillan has been terminated, as has Crazy Maple. And Hold Spring Publishers LLC, it does business as Macmillan. So that was basically a duplicative filing. And that is where that's who owns Macmillan. Entangled is a Delaware limited liability company. So that's where we're at right now. Lynn is currently suing Tracy Wolfe, Emily Kim, the agent, Prospect Agency LLC, Entangled Publishing, Universal City Studios, and Hold Spring Publishers or Macmillan, however we want to say
Author,
it.
agent, agency, publishing company in all of its iterations legally based on its ownership structure or organizational structure, and adapt, adaptation owner or option possessor.
Correct. So what it whew, it's a lot, right? That was a lot to go through. So we have more. We're going to try to summarize this, okay? There's a lot of paperwork here. We have spent hours reading this. We literally spent 2 hours together like reading some of the last pieces before we even started recording this. So we have both spent hours reading this, and we're going to try to reference the documents as much as possible, and try to summarize this for you all, because there is a lot of legalese in here. An average person reading this without any sort of legal background, I could understand being very confused as to what actually
Absolutely.
is going on.
Absolutely.
I had to start labeling things A, B, C, and D, 1, 2, 3, and 4, putting things in order for me to understand it. Okay.
I let Heather
So,
do all of that work because, frankly, I am so happy to have my lawyer in days in the rearview mirror.
yeah, if nothing else, I'm so happy I just had to read these documents and not write them. Okay.
What a, what a validation for the career pivot we made.
Truly, truly. So the basic crux is that Lynn claims that she wrote a manuscript. We're going to call it Blue Moon Rising. It occasionally has other names that she was trying out with the
But it
title.
started out as Blue Moon Rising.
Yes, so that's what I'm going to refer to it as is Blue Moon Rising. So she wrote this manuscript. She engaged with Emily Kim and asked her to shop it around to different publishers, as
Try to
one
find a
does.
publishing deal for it. Absolutely.
Exactly. Their relationship began in December of 2010. Their relationship ended in 2014. I believe it was March of
Yeah, it was
2014.
early 2014. That's right.
Early 2014. Kim submitted this manuscript to approximately 20 different publishers during their period of engagement, and nobody picked it up. Okay. It's alleged that the reason that Freeman even went to Kim in the first place, or I'll call her Kim because that's how she's referred to in all the pleadings, so it just makes it easier. Um, that she went to her in the first place because she had some interest from a UK publisher, and the UK publisher was like, go get an agent. And so then she started looking for agents and she found Kim, and that's how that happened. So she goes and searches for Kim. They engage. Kim submits, you know, the the manuscript to 20 different publishers, Entangled being one of them. And then nobody picks it up. They then terminate their relationship in 2014. And it is alleged that years later, or at some time in between then, but in between the time that that ended or even before it ended, it's just
Yes.
alleged.
At some point
At some
after
point,
Lynn engaged Kim,
yes. Some point after 2010,
there
during the engagement.
arose a scheme.
Yes, for lack of a better word.
Yes, that there arose a scheme at some point after Lynn engaged Kim to be her literary agent. There was a scheme to uh, feed Lynn's manuscript to another author and allow that author to infringe Lynn's copyright in her manuscript
Yes.
for purposes of basically publishing the story with a quote unquote better author.
That's the allegation. And if you just read the complaint, you might say, wow,
Holy shit, that really happened.
correct. You might say
Because
that.
the complaint makes it sound really good. Like Great storytelling by Lynn's lawyers, okay? Great
Wonderful
storytelling.
storytelling by Lynn's lawyers. Truly. Truly. So, December 8th, 2010, Freeman entered into this agency relationship. Okay. I'm just knocking out some of the highlights that I've done here. Sorry. There's a lot of good points in this. So, Freeman alleges that she sent Kim over 45 versions of the manuscript. I want to note here that this number changes depending upon what document you're reading.
It does.
She claims in the complaint that she sent over 45 versions of the manuscript to Kim. In another document, she says 50 versions of the manuscript. And in a recent filing, she says between 10 and 15 versions of the manuscript.
So we have some unidentifiable number, multiple number of versions of this manuscript that were sent to Kim over the course of the 3.25 years they were engaged in an agency relationship. And then maybe, depending on the support for some of the other filings in the case, there may have been 1 or 2 versions sent to Kim after their relationship was terminated. But there's not really a whole lot of support for that.
There's an allegation for that. I have seen no evidence supporting that. Okay. So we shall get there. There's an allegation that they went. So if you're reading the complaint, the allegation is that they went to the Romance Writers of America convention in 2012. Freeman went, as did Kim and Wolfe. I should note that Kim also represents Wolfe.
That's really important. I think.
Yes.
Yeah, that Kim was at this time, and maybe still is, I'm not sure, Tracy Wolfe's agent.
Yes. And it's alleged that Kim and Wolfe have this really close friendship. I just want to note that from everything that I've read, I see no evidence of a really close friendship other than an agent and author relationship.
Maybe a congenial business relationship, but there's nothing in the record that supports that they are more than just associates and colleagues.
Longtime colleagues, longtime working together, seem to have a very friendly relationship.
Sure.
But it's
nobody
reiterated.
Has alleged that like Tracy was the maid of honor at Kim's wedding or anything. Okay, like we're not.
No, but it's reiterated over and over and over that they have this close relationship, and
but then close is not defined.
And then close is not defined. It's basically alleged. Broad picture. I'm going to really try to make this broad picture. I know we're almost 20 minutes into this and we've gotten nowhere because that's what this lawsuit is. Okay. I hope you feel that way at the end of this because that's how I feel. We're going to be in this for a long time and you're going to feel like, wow, what happened? Okay. So it's alleged that because Kim felt that Tracy's career was in decline for a variety of extraneous reasons. This is alleged in like 2018, 2019, that somehow Kim remembers this manuscript from years before and says to Wolfe that, oh, well, you should write this. This is basically what's alleged. And that you should write this somehow, and gives the idea and feeds the manuscript.
A conspiracy on the part of Kim and maybe some of the staff at Entangled, who are also mentioned in the lawsuit, to essentially steal
Blue Moon Rising
from Lynn Freeman and allow Tracy to rewrite it and publish it as her own, ultimately the Crave series.
Correct. That's the allegation. So let's get back to some of these key pieces alleged in the complaint. This is brought up in the complaint and then really never brought up again, which tells me that there's no there. So it's brought up that they met at the Romance Writers of America conference, that Freeman Lynn met Tracy in the summer of 2012. Yeah. That Kim introduced them outside the hotel where they were staying, And Kim told Freeman that Tracy was an erotica writer, that she was speaking at the conference, and she introduced her as Tracy Deebs, or like a nickname, a variation of her name. Sure. Okay. I don't know. Like like I said, they don't really talk about this ever again in any of the pleadings. So who knows? Um, she claims that Kim told her to go to the workshop that Tracy was speaking at, and that they shared a car ride at some point, and that Kim was pumping her for information about her manuscript in this car ride. That was the first moment when I read this. I was on page 10 of the complaint where I was like, okay, okay, okay. My spidey sense started to go up. I was like,
The red flag guy is running around in the back of Heather's brain at this point.
yeah, that was my first red flag, that something may be
Amiss.
amiss at the Circle K.
Yeah.
The next,
I'm punchy at this point.
very punchy. I've had a brownie today. That is all I've eaten. It is 1:30 in the afternoon. I've been literally sucked into this lawsuit all day and all evening, like literally yesterday for hours.
Like the characters in both Lynn's manuscript and the Crave series, this lawsuit is a time vampire.
It sure is. Sure is. So in 2014, Kim told Freeman, this is alleged from Lynn, by the way. So Kim told her that if she couldn't write a contemporary romance book and give her something new, they needed to part ways, basically. Allegedly, she said that young adult movies and books in this genre were oversubscribed, and that Freeman would need to wait until her son graduated from high school in 2021 to resubmit her original manuscript.
Now, it's important that we designate that as an allegation Lynn is making here, not as an actual proven fact in the case. Lynn claims that that's what Kim told her.
Yes. That is when the second red flag guy started popping up and running around.
He's now replicating like Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park in Heather's brain. It's just one red flag guy after another.
The reason that this popped something for me is because I have to think, you have to put this in perspective of the landscape of the publishing industry, right? So this allegedly occurred in 2014 when they were parting ways. And sure, I recall at that particular time, I mean, Twilight was still pretty popular at that particular point. So, but I think waning, certainly. It was not at the height. It was waning. So I could see where that potentially could have been said, where she was saying, like, try to write something else and we'll shop that, right? We've been working on this for 3 years. It hasn't worked. Let's try to shop something else.
Nothing but rejections. Like, this just isn't working. There are some allegations too that the 45, 50, 15, 37 million, however many versions of the manuscript there were, that many of them were created at Kim's request throughout the relationship because Kim wanted Lynn to make changes to make it easier to shop the story.
Correct. That's the allegation.
Yes.
However, so I understand holding out for an agent. Some people want to do that, right? Some people are interested in doing that. But then taking her advice, because then she alleges that she decided to attend writers' conferences and workshops, continue to write and perfect her craft until 2021 when her son graduated from high school. I'm sorry, I can't even say it with a straight face. And following Kim's advice, she could then shop her original manuscript again. This is what she claims that she did. Okay, she didn't get a second opinion, right? Like, she stopped at one agent.
She let one agent tell her that she needed to wait 7 years.
Right.
Literally 7 years.
Potentially plausible, I guess. But also, you have to remember, in that period of time, the rise of indie publishing was like
huge.
It was huge. It was massive.
Neil James had already published 50 Shades of Grey. Like, we were well into what becomes the second wave of indie publishing by that point in time. Like,
and that particular area was not saturated at that particular time. Now it is. But at that time, she could have gone and independently published this book and potentially found her own success with this title at that particular time. I just find it so odd and convenient, frankly, that she takes the advice of this one agent that she had a relationship with and then doesn't write anything. She's not published anything ever. Okay, let's just be clear. Blue Moon Rising has never been published, nor has she ever published anything else.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's where we're coming from. That's the landscape that we're in. She alleges then, Lynn, we're talking about, that the first book, she read that she started reading Crave on or about March 31st, 2021. Okay. She picked it up at a local bookstore and she was shocked when she read the book and discovered that it was overwhelmingly substantially similar to her material, is what she alleges, especially since she knew that Kim was Wolfe's literary agent and close friend. She then proceeded to read the rest of the books as soon as they were available to the public and was again shocked to discover that all three of those books were overwhelmingly substantially similar to the manuscript that she sent to Kim. So that's where
her claim is that they're substantially similar, because that is a necessary component of this lawsuit.
Yes.
She can't get the court to give her what she's asking for unless she can prove substantial similarity. So she has to allege that substantial similarity exists between Blue Moon Rising and the first 4 books of the Crave series. Factually speaking, whether or not they are substantially similar, well, that's where her lawyers lose Heather and I, because we kind of disagree.
That's where we're off the plot. Okay. There's 2 things here. They're alleging a variety of things. So, I mean, I guess we should talk about the claims. There's a lot of allegations of similarities in her complaint that you could go through and potentially say, wow, this is overwhelming evidence.
The complaint itself is like 84, 87, 80, 90 pages.
87 pages, yeah.
Recitations and allegations, and then actual like comparisons of a Blue Moon Rising manuscript, which one is questionable.
Yeah, unclear.
Content from the first 4 books in the Crave series. And I mean, passages, similar word choices, references to the same like pop culture icons, turns of phrase and idioms that were chosen for dialogue in both books. Like it's just so odd. It's not like actual whole passages plagiarized. It's correct. What we would call mosaic plagiarism here, right? Like somebody went back through, allegedly, through Lynn's manuscript for Blue Moon Rising and just said, oh, that works. Let me cut it out and paste it into this scene in Crave or in Crush or in Covet.
And also, I should say that when you start looking at these more clear, more specifically, they're not any type of unique phrasing, right? Also, the page number. So in Blue Moon Rising, the phrase is, I'm just picking a random one here. Exhausted, I was too wired to go to sleep. And that's from the 2011 version on page 189. In the Crave version, needless to say, there's no going to sleep after that. And that's on page 301. So go to sleep and going to sleep on page numbers that are over 100 apart. Okay. And the rest are very similar. My head was spinning on page 230 in Blue Moon Rising. My head is spinning on page 309 in Crave. It's, a lot of this describing a romantic lead's appearance as dangerous and a bad boy, sexy, arrogant.
Cheek cupping versus face cupping.
Right. My eyes,
I
my
knew he needed to be here. He needed me. Like,
my
come
eyes
on.
bugged out of my head. My eyes bugging out of my head. I mean, these are turns of phrases that are very common. And when I first went through this, my first thought when reading this particular section, I mean, I had a lot of thoughts, obviously, going through this. But as I was going through these alleged similarities, I was thinking, I wonder what would happen if you took two or three other books from this genre and dipped them through the same comparison
Right.
to Blue Moon Rising.
How many of the same phrases and or
Character
descriptive
descriptions.
similarities would
Yeah.
you find?
Arguably, the way that this is done, I would say all of them. I would say the same level of similarities exist in two completely random books from the same genre because there's nothing there.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is just like classic genre or classic trope verbiage. It's not word for word plagiarism. It is not it's listen, language is limited. There are only a certain number of synonyms for certain words. You're going to get some repetition, especially in books that are in the exact same genre. And this is young adult paranormal fantasy adventure romance. I mean,
Right. So the allegation has to be because of this scattershot plagiarism approach, right? The allegation has to be that the manuscript was taken and put through some type of text spinner to then this is before, the world of AI, my
right,
friends. Like we don't
right.
have the AI things, the technology that we have today, the same that we did in 2020. Did some exist? I've no doubt certain ones did. Were they available on the commercial market in the same way as they are now? No. But could potentially Tracy have gotten her hands on this manuscript? I'm stretching, right? Like this is a hypothetical. She would then have had to put it through some type of a text spinner, which let's say it existed for her and that she had access to it, and then spit out, the manuscript. Okay, and you would expect that the plot lines and everything still would have been substantially similar to Blue Moon Rising, correct? Because it would be you're just throwing it through a text spinner and then editing it. A lot of the ways like people do now with like AI plagiarism. The evidence would have to show that to be true, right? Like you would
Yeah.
expect as you go through discovery that there would be something pointing to that as well. When you look at hard drives, when you look at
A
emails,
document,
when you look at a
testimony from a
document,
deposition, the analysis of an expert, something somewhere is going to point a flashing sign toward
that.
this text spinning conspiracy having taken place, or this
So,
mosaic picking and choosing and replanting
yeah.
specific word choices and details back into Tracy's Crave from Lynn's Blue Moon Rising manuscript.
So not only does she have to prove that part happened, but she
Mhm.
also has to prove that Tracy had access to, the manuscript
Mhm.
and that she received the manuscript to be able to complete that
Correct.
process. So
That
that's what she would have to definitively prove.
Kim or someone at Entangled
Yes,
gave Tracy her notes, her synopses, her manuscripts, anything that she had produced for Kim during their relationship, and gave it to
correct.
Tracy. And
So
also not just gave it to her, but gave it to her for the purpose of creating Crave as a form of plagiarizing
yes.
Blue Moon Rising.
So I read this 87-page lawsuit. I read the 23-page answer from one set of defendants and the 21-page answer from the other set of defendants. And I was like, okay, this could be plausible, right? I was really feeling like there's something potentially
You and
here.
I had this conversation this morning because
We
the
did.
summary judgment battle did not become relevant to our preparation until this morning
Right.
before we started recording. And so you and I had this chat, and I came in literally with that opinion. I
You
was
did.
like, this is the wildest thing that I think I have ever seen potentially happen in the publishing world. And holy shit, Lynn's lawyers have put together more evidence than is necessary. Like, the allegations in their complaints
Right.
go above and beyond establishing a cause of action here. And they made some stretches, but they really did hit some places where it looks bad for Tracy and Kim and Entangled.
Sure does. Sure does. So yeah, I mean, I came out of that same thing feeling the same way. Had some red flags, right? Red flags a tingling, but also remembering as an attorney and as you are writing the complaint in the light most favorable to your client. And oftentimes you sometimes have clients who are determined that certain facts be put in to the complaint, even though you don't necessarily, as the attorney, that they're not material, that they're not really going to matter at the end of the day, but you're appeasing your client for whatever reason, right? So I feel like, okay, maybe that's what happened, right? Like maybe this was
Right.
one of those
The
situations.
reason that the reason that Lynn's lawyers are alleging that one of the substantial similarities is that Heroine learns that the romantic lead is a werewolf in Blue Moon Rising, but is a vampire in Crave. Like, what?
Right.
That's a substantial similarity?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
That's a plot device in every fantasy YA romance that ever was written. Like, get
Right.
out. Okay, so stuff like that doesn't happen.
I was given a lot of leeway because I felt like there was enough potential there to file the lawsuit, right? So, okay. So what did they actually, they have to file some counts here. What are they alleging?
Sure.
They're alleging fraud and deceit against Prospect and Kim, okay?
Right.
There's count
The
two is
agent committed fraud.
yeah. There's breach of fiduciary duty against Prospect and Kim. There's fraudulent concealment against Prospect and Kim. There's breach of contract against Prospect and Kim. There is copyright infringement against Wolfe, Kim, Prospect, Entangled, against all of them, Macmillan and Crazy Maple. Okay, you have to remember Crazy Maple has been terminated at this point, but at this point they were not. Contributory copyright infringement against everyone. Vicarious copyright infringement against everyone.
Vicarious.
Declaratory relief against Universal, Wolfe, and Entangled. Oh, I should say Universal was not alleged for some of these counts. Everyone but Universal for the other ones. Universal's only been included in declaratory relief.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. She wants money from Universal.
Yeah, and she wants them to stop the production of Crave. So I apologize for misspeaking there. Universal's only included in the declaratory relief count. Everyone else is included in. When I said everyone, I meant everyone but Universal. So what is she asking for? Because I saw some people were confused about what she was asking for when people were talking about this on the internet. So she's asking that she has to ask for relief for every single count, right? So when you plead these counts and then you ask for relief specifically for each count. And then if the court throws a count out, you still have relief requested for some of the other counts.
Well, that's the whole point of filing a lawsuit. You throw everything and the kitchen sink at the court. And if you get 3 or 4 things that stick, you got a lawsuit that goes all the way to summary judgment and maybe trial.
Right. So she's basically asking for compensatory damages in an amount to be proven at trial. Compensatory damages are damages that can be proven that she would be entitled to. So in this case, it would be lost profits for the Crave. She's going after the Crave royalties. Okay, that's basically what she's doing. She's also asking for punitive damages for the counts that allow for punitive damages. Not all counts, not all causes of action allow for punitive damages. Punitive damages are usually 3 times the amount of compensatory damages. Or sometimes they can not have a guide, but
Right. They can just
it's,
be whatever the jury thinks is reasonable if it's a jury trial, or whatever the judge
yeah,
finds is reasonable based on evidence and affidavits submitted by the parties before a bench trial or subsequent to a bench trial.
right.
Um, Always a number designed to penalize the person who's being ordered to pay it and also discourage other parties from doing the same thing later on down the road. So, supposed to be a really big, shocking number most of the time.
Yeah. So that's what she's asking for there. And let's see what else. That they're asking for an accounting of all gains, profits, and advantages, from the copyright infringement. They're asking that during the course of this action that they be banned from selling or exploiting the titles, Crave and its progeny.
And that didn't
That
happen.
that didn't happen because the title is still up for sale everywhere. They're asking for reasonable attorney's fees for the counts that allow for that to be requested, because not all counts allow for reasonable attorney's fees to be requested. That's a fun fact. Um, they're also asking for declaratory judgment that the that that the basically that she's the owner of the copyright of Crave, that Lynn Freeman is the copyright of Crave and its progeny, and that Universal not be entitled to produce a motion picture for Crave. So that's the basic things that she's asking for. That was an 87-page lawsuit, cause of action. So then we go into the responses. So we basically have 2 camps. The defendants have been split up into 2 camps. We have Prospect Agency and Emily Kim. They are one camp of defendants. And then we have everyone else is the second camp of defendants. Everyone else
Right.
who's still in the lawsuit, I should say.
Yes. And this is important because Lynn had a contractual relationship with Kim and Prospect. So
Yes.
all of the contract-based claims are just against Kim and the agency, Prospect.
Yes.
And so it's important to keep that in mind.
So what one defendant's going to be replying to is not necessarily what the other. They're going to have similar arguments, but different issues for a lot of this.
Their answers are by and large boilerplate denials.
Yes.
And that's pretty standard in most civil suits.
Correct. They, straight up denials. Oh, there was the other thing. There was a third red flag, I'm sorry, in the complaint. And I'm just remembering now as I open up the answer.
You need a little red flag graphic that just pops up over your head.
Well, Lynn Freeman alleged that during the recruitment, the onboarding of
when she was first negotiating her relationship with Emily Kim.
Yes. She alleges that Kim told her in an effort to get her to trust her, I guess, or come on board.
To induce her
into the relationship.
Exclusive agency agreement with her.
Yes. That she was she was responsible
for discovering Twilight.
I don't know how else to say that. In the slush pile.
In the slush pile for manuscripts.
Yes. That was alleged. So Kim denies that. Kim says, I never said that.
Right.
And she denies that she told Lynn that she had not yet had a commercial success at Prospect. And that was the other allegation, that she said that she hadn't had a commercial success yet, but she thought that with Lynn's manuscript that would change. And Kim
Which one is it, Lynn? Did this bitch discover Twilight? I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Right. Emily. That was rude.
But really, which one is it?
Worked up about this. That was terrible.
Which is
So
it though?
Emily discovered Twilight, or she's never had a commercial success. What's the story here?
I mean, coming from Lynn, that's basically what she would be saying, right? Um, Kim then replies and says, like, no, that's not true. She worked at the firm that published Twilight, but she didn't actually. She said that she didn't discover it. And she represented a National Book Award finalist that was made into a film and had represented several best-selling books
Right.
prior to working with
Right.
Freeman. So, yeah. Like, which is it? Which is it?
Well, but see, there's a lot of that in these pleadings, especially. I mean, in Lynn's attorneys get really creative.
Yeah,
They get really creative.
they do. And we are getting a little worked up about this because it's
bad lawyering.
It's bad lawyering. Kim says she doesn't recall introducing Freeman and Wolfe at this event. She doesn't recall riding in the hotel.
Right.
She says that she did submit her book to at least 17 editors. It's later clarified to, I think, 20. And she asked her to write materials such as outlines to help her hone in her core story before making further submissions. She denies that she ever told her to wait until 2021 to further, submit her manuscript.
I was just like, that's one of the most batshit crazy things in the entirety of this lawsuit.
It really is.
One specific allegation of fact.
It's very odd. She admits that she submitted her manuscript to Entangled on Freeman's behest on or around October 2013. Kim asked Freeman whether she wanted to pull the submission from Entangled Publishing in March of 2014 when they were, ending their relationship.
Yeah.
Freeman said yes, and Kim's pulled the submission. So she pulled the submission. We got to get into the facts about that particular, what actually happened, allegedly what actually happened, because when I got to the motion for summary judgment, my mind was blown.
Jaw meat floor.
I'm just going to scroll through this answer real quick of Entangled and Tracy Wolfe to see if there was any other bits in here. There are small little bits, like Wolfe admits that she went to the, Romance Writers of America
she was
conference.
At RWA. But she denies speaking on the topic that Lynn claims she, like, it's just so funny. It's like, it's so petty down to the very last little detail. Yeah, I went to RWA in 2012, but no, I did not give a speech on that topic. Like,
yeah, she gave a speech, but not on that topic. And I will say, the lawyers for Entangled et al., that's what I'll call Tracy Wolfe's team, they are petty in the best legal way. I mean, some of the lines that they have dropped, we appreciate them. I don't know if a layperson reading them would appreciate them in the same way, but we're going to try to impress that upon you. They are legal gifts, like chef's kiss.
Call out after call out after call out in the footnotes, just absolute brilliance.
Footnotes. Whoever wrote them, because listen, the lawyers' names that are on the actual pleading, they certainly contributed to the document. But
a junior associate and 3 paralegals actually wrote these documents.
100%. And I appreciate you, whoever you are.
Yes. Mystery snarky person, we love you.
You made me laugh so hard. We have many of those. So interestingly, so they talk about this demand letter. They wrote a demand letter in, February of 2022, to the defendants saying, you stole this work. These are our allegations. And if you don't.
This is often a precursor to the lawsuit. You have to send a demand asking the party that you're going to sue or the parties that you're going to sue to stop doing what they're doing. And they have to refuse. And then and only then can you file your lawsuit. So,
right. So Tracy Wolfe describes that she literally said that she was sitting at home one day. This is in a later filing. And she gets this email with this demand letter, or however she receives the demand letter, I can't remember, and is like, I'm being sued for, like, who? Like, she has no idea she claims she has no idea who Lynn Freeman is. She has no idea why she's being sued. She's like, this came out of nowhere, like Nowheresville. So they write the demand letter. Answering defendants further state that it's February 17th, 2022 correspondence to plaintiffs' counsel. Answering defendants' counsel wrote, I have been advised that Miss Kim only emailed a pitch letter for your client's manuscript to Miss Pelletier on October 10th, 2013, and she did not include the manuscript. So this is very key because in the complaint, they allege that the manuscript was transferred to Entangled in 2013.
Specifically to this Pelletier.
Liz
And
Pelletier
also,
is the head editor, if you will.
right. And then maybe a second time to Stacey Abrams, and not Georgia Stacey Abrams, but
a different Stacey
Abrams.
Yeah.
STACY, not STACEY.
Correct.
These two women, I'm making assumptions. I assume Stacey is a woman. Stacey, I guess, could be a man.
Could be.
Or
but
non-binary, whatever.
For sake of
Liz and Stacey at Entangled allegedly took delivery of
the manuscript.
A manuscript, one version or another of Blue Moon Rising via Kim.
The way that the complaint was written made it seem like it was just transferred to Entangled and they had possession of it in 2013.
Right.
What they actually admitted in was that there was a pitch sent in 2013, was not included, but no manuscript. And then another editor replied to Kim, stating that Ms. Pelletier was closed for submissions and requested that Emily Kim send the manuscript to her instead. That would be Stacey Abrams. Right. She replied to the email and said that, Liz Pelletier's, submissions are closed. Send me the manuscript instead. Liz Pelletier was not copied on that correspondence. There was no CC or anything like that. Kim did send the manuscript to Stacey Abrams, and the editor never replied to Miss Kim nor discussed the manuscript with anyone after receiving this. So that's what's interesting about the answer. There's what is alleged from the defendant's side that happened. Okay, I'm just trying to see, is there anything else here that no. So now.
No, that would be putting the cart before the horse. Go ahead. Let's talk about what the defendants collectively and individually claim actually happened.
Okay, so my summary of what the defendants claim occurred. Okay. So Kim sent a last-ditch pitch email to Entangled saying, it was there's language in here. I could find the exact number if you really want me to, but it was like a 300-word pitch email to Liz Pelletier, pitching
short and sweet
the concept of Blue Moon Rising. Allegedly, only like 200 of those words actually had to do with the actual pitch and not like email niceties and things like that. Liz then, I guess, forwarded that to Stacey because Liz was closed for submission. I don't know if she forwarded it or if it was like an automated response or something like that. But basically, Stacey ended up emailing back and saying that Liz is closed for submissions. Send it to me instead. And okay, great. So she does that. She attaches the manuscript this time and sends it to Stacey Abrams. So Stacey then claims in her deposition that she doesn't recall reading it. She says she may have opened the email. She doesn't recall. She doesn't recall reading it. She doesn't recall downloading it. There is absolutely no evidence that she forwarded it to Liz, that she did anything with this document. It was the only evidence that we have is that it was emailed to her in 2013.
It lived and died in her inbox as far as we know.
Correct. there was not even a reply back saying we deny this submission, we are going to move forward with this submission. It went into the vortex of the inbox. Okay.
Side note, this really makes Kim seem like a really ineffective agent. Like, all of
Well,
these facts.
it's not, I mean, it's not looking great for her at this particular moment, but
I mean, right?
arguably,
Like,
but here's the thing though. How many, it is stated that they get between 5 and 10 submissions a day.
sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I realize that editors are just absolutely inundated from all sides, probably pretty consistently, both with contacts they already have and people who just found them on their employer's website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I get that that's the process, but like, you gonna send a manuscript and never follow up on it? What?
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing though. I don't think she followed up on it for this particular because it was at the
This
end
was
of
the
their
last
relationship.
this
This
was
was
the
the
last ditch
last ditch
effort, and
effort.
she was
Yeah.
alleviated of her responsibility when they
Yeah.
mutually agreed to part ways shortly after. And I get that totally. But
She
like,
actually, I mean, in one of the filings, she actually alleges Kim basically says that like before this last ditch filing, she was like, we're basically done. Like there's no one else
this
to submit this
this
to.
is my Hail Mary. I will do this, but if nothing
Well,
comes of it, we're just like,
yeah.
we're at an impasse at this point. If you're not going to write something different, I can't keep working with you.
Yeah, Lynn was like, "Well, can you submit it to any other people?" And she's like, "Well, I guess I could try these couple other people." And they were like Hail Marys. So, and she wasn't really necessarily expecting a response back at, from that. So that's what I gather is their reply from all the facts that I've been reading. So that's what happened with the submission. So Entangled, Stacey Abrams did have a copy of the manuscript in 2013 in her inbox. Um, fact discovery in this case occurred for approximately a year. Okay.
Which is kind of short when you consider how
Yeah.
involved and layered this case is.
The defendants collectively produced 41,569 documents. That's not pages of documents, friends. That is separate documents.
Do you know what that number tells me? The only people who are winning this lawsuit are the lawyers for both parties.
So true. You're not wrong.
My God, that is a billing nightmare because someone had to go through
And
all
label.
42, I'm rounding
Yep.
up, right? 42,000
Sure.
documents produced as part of discovery.
Yeah.
And that's just from one side of the lawsuit. That's just what the defense
Defendants
produced
produced. Yeah.
for Lynn and her attorneys, not what she and her attorneys had to put together and produce
Yeah.
in response to, the defenses that have been
Interrogatories
raised.
and that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
42, approximately 42,000
Someone's
documents.
someone's billing several $100s an hour to go
Oh,
through 42,000
easy.
documents.
Easy. So this included approximately 32,700 emails, 19,414 pages of text messages, often long chains spanning months of conversations, and then various standalone documents, including numerous Crave drafts. Okay.
I've never, ever, ever been so grateful to have made a career pivot. Never.
My point is in none of those, that's what we're talking about with evidence that
Yeah.
was produced. In none of those is there any evidence that the manuscript Blue Moon Rising was transferred from Stacey Abrams to anyone else, or that Stacey Abrams read it, or that it
The
was
manuscript's
ever
not attached. It's not copied and pasted from and inserted into any of the communications.
no.
It's never referenced by
No.
name or in code. Like, it just, we have thousands of communications and not one mention of or reference to or passage or clip or snippet or excerpt from Blue
Correct.
Moon Rising.
Nothing. out of all of those documents. That to me was the most damning whoa. Because if there was some there'd be something in all of their communications. They pulled hard drives, my friends. Like they pulled hard drives, they did logs, they did
They brought in
metadata.
expert witnesses to analyze the metadata and
Yeah,
all of the technological, like little things, timestamps and rewritten versions of documents and all sorts of stuff they analyzed.
right.
And no one could point to anything definitive that said, yes, absolutely. Here's an instance where they discussed Lynn Freeman or Blue Moon Rising or
Yeah.
copied passages from a manuscript or otherwise referenced having something in a slush pile that no one was ever going to publish that they could pull from. Like,
Nothing.
no evidence of the conspiracy, let alone the specific conspiracy that's alleged by Lynn
Right.
Freeman.
Because remember, guys, if we are going to prove that what happened according to Lynn Freeman happened, then there needs to be access to the manuscript, and there needs to be some type of proof that Tracy, had access to this manuscript and used it in
Right.
a various way.
Right. So we've
So
got the manuscript going from Lynn to Kim and from Kim to Liz, Liz rejecting it and Stacey Abrams accepting it. And that is the end of the chain of custody, if you will,
I just
for
want to
the
be very
manuscript.
clear that Liz Pelletier was never sent the manuscript. She
Okay.
was only sent a
Okay.
pitch.
That's
Stacey
right.
Abrams is the
That's right.
only person who received the
Whoever
manuscript.
received the manuscript.
So
And
why is this a big deal? Okay, so this is a big deal because this is how Crave came about, and according to the defendants. So Entangled CEO Liz Pelletier, co-created the concept of Crave with Wolfe. She served as the content editor, meaning substantive edits and changes. Entangled editor Stacey Abrams served as a copy editor, proofreading, typos, things like that, of Crave. Okay. And then literary agent Emily Kim represents Wolfe and previously represented plaintiff. What essentially happened, you
according
find
to
out,
Entangled and
according to Entangled.
Tracy
Yes.
Wolfe.
I'm not going to try to find the exact thing. This is by my recollection from reading the several hundred pages of documents, is that basically Liz Pelletier in sometime in like 2019, she had read some article talking about, that the teen girls and specifically teens in general were dissatisfied with the books that were currently being produced for them. There was some type of an article about it. She remembered reading something before or some sort of factoid about how trends happen every single 10 years, that they like resurface and cycle back, which, as a side note, that is very true. Everything is cyclical and it does cycle back. She saw some reference to how Twilight was coming to its 10-year anniversary and was like, hey, we have a spot that just opened up because some project fell through. Like she talked to Stacey and was like, hey, Stacey, can you find someone? Can you find an author to write this style of book? And the style was described as Harry Potter meets Twilight. And that's what she wanted, someone to write. And Abrams said, sure. Abrams allegedly reached out to Wolfe because she liked her voice. You have to remember, Wolfe has published approximately 70 romance novels at this point. She's worked with Entangled a lot. I don't know exclusively. I don't think exclusively, but she's worked with them a lot. So it's a name that Stacey Abrams knows, right?
They're familiar with her writing and her
They're
voice,
familiar
and
with her writing.
she's in Stacey's opinion the best candidate for this particular job.
It's my understanding that Stacey did not go through Kim at this point.
She reached out to
I
Tracy directly.
I think so. I'd have to go back through and look to see about that detail, but maybe she reached out through Kim. I can't recall that specific detail, and I don't remember reading that anywhere, but that would be an interesting fact to know. But so she reaches out and says, hey, can you, create this style of book, Twilight meets Harry Potter, or Harry Potter meets Twilight, whatever. And Wolfe says, sure, writes up 5 different pitch ideas and sends it back in. Liz looks at them and says, I like number 2, which is what eventually Crave turns into. And that's how that was created. That's, what's
Vastly
interesting there.
different from the conspiracy of Kim to somehow turn Tracy into a bestseller and revive her career.
Yeah. So
by stealing Lynn's manuscripts.
The first what that I wrote in the response, the defendants
in the margins, it's just capital WHAT exclamation point question mark.
What? Was okay, so they have experts. Everybody has an expert, okay? There are so many pleadings with Daubert motions is what they're called, regarding experts and whether they're viable and should they be in, should they be out. I did not download a single one of those. I spent, probably $50 or so downloading all of these. I was not spending the, more
the
money
biggest
on
wastes
that.
of money and pissing matches that happen in law are expert opinion testimony, expert witness testimony, Daubert motions, and oh god, it's just there's a whole standard you have to meet to get an expert declared to be an expert by the court and to get their testimony to be admissible, and it's a lot. It's a great way to ensure the expert makes some money.
That is for sure.
And the lawyers make some money.
So allegedly, there's a couple of experts, doctors Carol Chosky and Patrick Juwala. I desperately apologize if I'm mispronouncing their names. They are forensic linguists who purport to have performed a computational and statistical analysis to determine the degree of similarity between the parties' works. They were hired by the plaintiffs. They were hired by Lynn Freeman.
Such a boring job.
Defendants, single affirmative expert. I think so. Was that? Hold on. Catherine Rice and authorization between BMR. Yeah, I think that's correct. Okay, yeah. That is correct. They were the plaintiff's experts. So defendants had a rebuttal expert, Dr. Malcolm Coulthard is his name. And he is, according to the defendants, the forensic linguist whose work Doctors Chosky and Juwala principally rely on. So
we went and got the OG.
They went and got the OG. Okay.
You guys are playing with newbies. We went and got the OG.
That's basically what happened. That was literally a smackdown in the legal landscape.
Missed that detail.
You missed that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So plaintiffs went out and got these 2 linguist experts who relied on certain, works for their opinions.
Right.
And defendants went out.
This is the standard of expertise and how we practice in this particular field.
Yeah.
And the defense went and got the guy who set the standard.
Yeah. Who mostly rebuts their opinions. And Dr. Coulthard's detection, this is a quote from the defendant's manuscript, okay? This is what I said what to. Dr. Coulthard's detection of plaintiff's own verbatim copying from the script of a TV show is relevant because it helps show what real plagiarism might look like. I said, what? What? That is the first reference to that, and I was literally aghast. What are you talking about?
We got experts. The defense goes out and gets an expertier expert, right? We've got the expertiest expert. And he says something the plaintiff did is a much better example of plagiarism than what the plaintiff alleges the defendants did.
Correct. And I gotta find it. I don't know where exactly it is in these hundreds of pages of documents, but we later find that what he's referencing, allegedly, is that, oh God, where is it? Well, I did highlight it. That she allegedly, Lynn, oh, here it is. Dr. Coulthard found and proved that plaintiff herself verbatim copied 89 words of dialogue from the script of the TV show Roswell into her apparent notes at the end of BMR Blue Moon Rising 2013. What? What? I felt that that was a little petty to include, but also great. It was fantastic.
You know the phrase, the call is coming from inside the house?
Yeah. Yeah. What really got me though is when we start looking, because there up until this point in time, there has been no real analysis as to what, I don't even know what Blue Moon Rising's about. Okay, right? Like there's all of these references in the complaint as to the similarities between the two titles. But
we find out this is a strategic decision on the part of the plaintiffs, because if they had
yes,
actually complained and filed their lawsuit with a synopsis style comparison of the two plots, the court would have granted a motion to dismiss probably almost immediately.
because we now, in the memorandum of law in support of the defendant's motion for summary judgment on the copyright claims in opposition to plaintiff's motion for summary judgment,
Yeah.
document 298 on page 8, we finally
It took us
get
300 documents to get here, but we finally got here.
finally fucking here, my friends. I'm like, finally, what in the fuck are these books about? Crave.
I hate lawyers. I know we are them, but also we are no longer them, and I hate them so much. This is just so wasteful and
It's so wasteful.
banal. Like,
this is wild. Okay, so there's a synopsis of Crave. There's actually a synopsis of the first 4 books, which I will
you should
not.
just read it.
I'm not going to read the synopsis of the first 4 books. I will read the synopsis of Crave, and then I'm going to read the synopsis of Blue Moon Rising.
Please.
Into the record. Okay.
Please.
This is according to the defendants now, I should say. But
yes.
Still, yes. I've not received a synopsis from the plaintiffs to compare.
Right. Lynn and her attorneys have had 300 court filings up to this point to put something like this out here from their perspective and their interpretation. And what they've chosen to do instead is just file a litany of little snippets, like 2-liners that show
or general
where,
tropes of saying, like, there's vampires, there's werewolves, his eyes lit up when they kissed.
The heroines are both 17. They're both in Alaska. They both think being there is like being on the moon. Like, right. Little stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is the Crave summary according to the defendants. I should say the group of defendants that we're talking about is all of those except for Kim and Prospect. They're separate. Crave begins when a short, curvy, curly-haired Grace moves from San Diego to remote Katmere Academy mere weeks after both her parents die suddenly in a car crash. Her uncle Finn is Katmere's headmaster, and her younger cousin Macy is a junior and Grace's roommate. Unbeknownst to Grace, Katmere is a bona fide magical school like Hogwarts and Harry Potter, where the student body is divided into 4 factions: vampires, witches, wolf shifters, and dragon shifters, who variously align with and or distrust each other. Paranormal power is woven into the fabric of the school. The students take classes about supernatural topics and regularly discuss and display their powers openly, except in front of Grace at first. Grace begins mired in grief at the loss of her parents and struggling to accept her starkly different new life. Throughout the book, Grace believes she is a normal girl with no paranormal powers. Grace's initial love interest is the mysterious and surly Jackson Vega, eventually revealed to be a nearly 200-year-old vampire with telekinetic powers and prince of the royal vampire family. He hangs out with a diverse group of 5 other vampires, the Order, the coolest clique in school. Unbeknownst to Grace, she and Jackson magically bond as mates upon their first meeting. Jackson acts distant at first, mostly for Grace's safety, but as the story goes on, he saves Grace from other paranormal students who try to hurt and kill her, and the two fall in love. The other main characters in Crave are 1. Macy, a kind, funny, and girly witch who emotionally supports Grace as she transitions to life at Katmere and joins the paranormal world. 2. Leah, a female vampire of East Asian descent who appears to be quiet, nerdy, and friendly, but is secretly plotting to use Grace as a human sacrifice in a magical spell to resurrect Jackson's believed to be deceased older brother Hudson. 3. Flint, a tall and muscular half-Egyptian, half-Irish dragon shifter who is friendly and flirty with Grace, even as he plans to kill her to prevent her from being used in Leah's plot. And 4. Heather, a feisty gay black girl who is Grace's best friend from home and regularly texts with Grace, providing a contrast between Grace's old and new lives. Major series character Hudson only appears briefly at the end of Crave, but is often discussed, and Leah's plan to resurrect him drives the book's central conflict. Over the course of the book, Grace continually expresses oddities and dangers as she eventually learns the truth about Katmere and its paranormal denizens. On her first night, 2 Wolf Shifter students try to intimidate her by throwing her out into the cold, but Jackson intervenes and saves her. Later, Grace leaves an intimidating welcome party and meets Leah, who secretly poisons her. Flint later knocks Grace out of a tree during a snowball fight in an attempt to kill her to prevent her role in Leah's plot. Over the course of the book, Grace and Jackson's relationship escalates, and the two first kiss in a climactic scene where Jackson is so overcome by passion that he loses control of his powers and causes an earthquake. At the end of Crave, Jackson manages to interrupt Leah's spell and rescue Grace. Leah is killed. Spoiler alert. A week later, after things seem back to normal, Hudson appears.
Probably should have led with that.
Probably should have led with that, but honestly, these books have been out for a while, so. A week later, after things seem to be back to normal, Hudson appears in a puff of smoke in the school hallway, swinging a sword towards Jackson. Grace steps in to take the blow, and then immediately and mysteriously turns to stone. That is a summary of book 1. There's a summary of the next 3 books as well. I will not read those. However, we then get to the summary.
Defense's summary of
Yes.
Blue Moon Rising.
Yes. Here we go. All right. It's the first time I'm finding out what Blue Moon Rising is about. And I apologize, it's taking me an hour and 16 minutes to tell you. But that's how I felt. So here we go.
Heather's providing us with the immersive experience today, y'all. Like we are microdosing her frustration.
You sure are, because it took me about 4 or 5 hours. So anyway.
You think about the judge. The judge is just now, after 300 filings, getting this summary.
Right. Blue Moon Rising introduces Anna while she is having a vision during a tarot reading. Anna is having increasing visions and knows that her mother and aunt are keeping secrets from her. As the school year starts, mysterious new students Ash and Lily arrive, looking rock star chic on a motorcycle. Anna initially doesn't think Ash is her type, but they proceed to fall for each other, to Taylor's jealous chagrin. As the story unfolds, Anna repeatedly performs tarot readings, including about Ash, and has numerous foreboding dreams, visions, is continuously stalked by a raven, develops a strange tingling and growing rash on her neck, probes her mother and aunt for information about her family, and butts heads with Taylor, in one scene seeming to manifest a zit on Taylor's face and later fighting at a party. Meanwhile, teen girls are being mysteriously abducted. Ash takes Anna to a bluff to watch the northern lights, and his eyes frighteningly glow as they have their first kiss, reminding Anna of a vision. Later, at a Barnes & Noble, Ash reveals that he is a werewolf and that a paranormal war is afoot, featuring demons who are searching for the one who is, quote-unquote, tied to both houses' light and the dark, and the, quote-unquote, key to tipping the balance of the war. Anna later returns to school and rescues Ash's mother from an attacking, I don't know how to say this word. It is an Irish wizard who gives a demon his soul in exchange for powerful magic and immortality. Boitsje demon? Sure. But is stabbed in the belly and badly bleeding, prompting Ash to bite her to save her, confirming a previous vision about being bitten. Anna and Ash later visit the sanctuary, where she notices an apparent vampire eyeing her. Anna leaves, but is abducted by thugs in the parking lot and brought to a Tudor mansion where the vampire, Julian, tells Anna about Elise, also previously seen in a vision. Julian explains that Elise is Anna's real mother. He believes Anna is in fact is Elise, and he wants to take Anna as his lover. Ash bursts in and fights Julian, and then Taylor joins in under the control of a demon via a cursed ring on her finger. Elise appears to Anna in a mirror and beckons her to a portal through the mirror to an alternate dimension, Avalon, sometimes called Anwin. where she confirms she is Anna's mother and explains that a wolf from Anna's visions is Anna's father. Anna then follows a raven, Ronan, to come upon two trapped wolves who look familiar. One, her father, as seen in a vision. Anna frees the wolf she thinks is her father, who snatches her and pushes her out through the mirror as she goes to rescue the second wolf. The story returns to Anna's initial tarot vision from the beginning of the book. A large black wolf appears and shifts into a man, Ronan. Ash appears as a bear and lunges at Ronan, who shifts into a raven and flies away. Let's have a moment of silence.
What the actual fuck?
What? That was literally what I said after I read that. I was like, what? Those are two different books.
One is Harry Potter, the other is Twilight.
They're two different
not
books.
the same.
They're not the same. There are plaintiff provide. I mean, and they say like it's just wild. So there's another allegation here that gets brought up that is also wild. So Tracy Wolfe wrote an earlier novel called Tempest Rising. And it's become relevant because it was alleged that Wolfe, quote unquote, gradually copied larger and larger amounts of Freeman's material in her prior books to test if she would get caught using the unauthorized material. That's an exact quote. Implying that Kim allegedly began feeding Tracy Wolfe plaintiff's work as soon as she received it in late 2010. Plaintiff Lynn Freeman provided a list identifying 56 purportedly similar phrases appearing in The Tempest and Blue Moon Rising, as well as various alleged plot and character similarities. This includes telling the story of a girl from California who thinks she's human but discovers she's supernatural and comes into powers on her 17th birthday and will shift to her supernatural form. Which, by the way, I've read like 4 books by different authors recently where that is also true.
That's because it's a standard trope in the genre.
Yeah. The thing is, The Tempest, the final draft of The Tempest Rising was submitted to Bloomsbury, the publisher of that work, around June 2010. And the advanced reader copy of it was printed in October 2010. Let us remember.
Lynn hired Kim in December of 2010. So all of this took place somewhere between 5 and 6 to 2 months before Blue Moon Rising ever saw.
Which goes back to my original point that if you took a rando book and submitted it against Blue Moon Rising, you would find similarities because of genre and tropes and scenes de faire, which, by the way, is a legal defense to all of this and something that we need to talk about. So I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I'm going to call it scenes de faire. I believe that that's how you say it. It's essentially...
Listen, if people in the South can say voir dire, you can call it whatever you want to, okay?
That's right. That's basically in publishing, it's a legal defense that basically says that this scene, this type of scene, is basically obligatory for the genre in which you are writing. So for an action movie or book, for an action movie or book, you would expect a car chase scene. Okay, these are things that are expected in the genre that you are writing.
Like finding out the romantic love interest is a supernatural creature with all kinds of great powers.
Yes. So when I read The Tempest shenanery, I was like, okay.
Now we're reaching.
So also something that the defense really does nicely is they just box out the facts as they see it, right? This is as they see it, but as I'm reading it, they list things out really easily to read. So the whole point is that you're supposed to, in these copyright lawsuits, you're supposed to read both of the works. And then the standard is for an ordinary reader, like a lay reader, if they would find it too similar.
Right.
That's essentially
Someone
the
who's not well
standard.
versed in intellectual property law.
Correct.
Right.
Let me find if I can.
27,000 people who've reviewed Crave on Amazon alone.
Right. The defense's argument that any reasonable reader would find that plaintiffs' misleading similarity claims are false. And they basically knock this out, and I'm just going to read a couple of them. Plaintiff claims the books share overall storylines, but storyline ideas are unprotected. Only an author's specific expression of a plot idea is copyrightable. Plaintiff claims her central storyline of a teenaged heroine who turns out to be paranormal and must fight a supernatural war was infringed. But this generic idea is common in fiction, and the works here could not express it more differently.
Why isn't she suing everybody who's ever written
Yeah.
an urban fantasy or paranormal YA story with a 17 or 18-year-old heroine?
Right. Plaintiff claims the book's protagonists, Anna in Blue Moon Rising and Grace in Crave, are similar, but Grace has a feisty and quirky personality, while Anna is more insecure and reserved. Grace is a gargoyle who can fly and heal, while Anna is a witch who practices tarot.
Oh, that's why
and
she
has
turns to
premonitions.
stone at the end of Crave. She's part gargoyle.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
badass.
I know. I sort of want to read it now. Grace initially doesn't know she's paranormal, while Anna knows she's a witch from the outset. Grace's parents died tragically right before the story begins, while Anna's mother is living, and it turns out her father is too. And Grace attends a remote paranormal boarding school in the mountains, while Anna goes to a normal public school in the city.
Anna is Bella, and
Yeah.
Grace is Harry. Like, you cannot convince me otherwise.
Plaintiff claims the book settings are similar, but she does not own the idea of a high school in Alaska. I mean, she doesn't. There's more. Plaintiffs, it's concept and feel, and there's a lot here. Plaintiff's own expert concedes that the works differ in tone and voice. So there's a lot. There's some fun little points in here that were zingers. I mean, literally, they papered this so much. And the defense actually calls them out for it at one point. The defense calls out the plaintiffs and says, "You filed so much paper in this case," I'm paraphrasing, with the hope that the judge would just basically say, "Send it to the jury. This is too much to sort out."
I think that's absolutely a legal strategy, and one that gets employed more often than not in civil suits like this that do not have a lot of toothy factual support. This one is 100, maybe not 100%, but it is 90+% circumstantial evidence at best on Lynn Freeman and her attorney's parts.
Right.
And they literally just put together as much as they could to overwhelm rather than to surgically present a clean case.
Right. And listen, if there was any evidence that existed that showed a nexus between Tracy Wolfe and Liz Pelletier and Kim, anybody who touched the manuscript, there's so there's Google Docs.
Let's talk about the Google Docs.
Let's talk about the Google Docs. Oh,
they're in there. Somebody's gonna bring it up, so we might have to address it.
I should note, the Google Docs did not become an issue in these motherfucking filings as any sort of substantive anything until like document 342, I think it is.
Right. When Lynn's attorneys have their backs against the wall and they finally have to come out with some sort of proof in support of their claims that there is access on Tracy's part to Blue Moon Rising. Like they have to plead something and provide some evidence to support that pleading.
Right.
So here we get the Google Docs as our attempt to prove some factual basis for a jury to find that there was access.
So it is alleged for the first time that I see. I don't know. Where is it? I think it's in one of these. It could actually be in.
It's in one of them somewhere.
It's in one of them somewhere. Okay, so it's alleged in one of the summary judgment motions. Okay, so it might have been document 41 or 43. Hold on, which one is it? But literally hasn't really been brought up again since these documents. That there were, where is it? Basically, that Kim sat in the Google Docs with Tracy Wolfe while Tracy was writing. And that's the allegation. That she sat there with her.
Right. And that Kim, who had received multiple versions of Blue Moon Rising, could have, not that she definitively did, but that she could have engaged in giving ideas to Tracy or copying and pasting stuff from Blue Moon Rising to Tracy in the Google Docs while Tracy was writing.
Right.
Some of, if not all of, the books in the Crave series.
I think it's in here.
That's their support for access.
Right. And so there is some reference to Kim sitting in a Google Doc with Tracy for the writing of the fourth book, book 4.
Yeah.
But there's only one reference in these hundreds of pages of documents.
So wild to me.
Which, if this were true, look, I can't even find it.
Makes a much stronger case for access because it's like one paragraph in a response in opposition to summary judgment.
Yeah, I gotta find
summary
it.
Judgment motions
saying that Kim was part of the Crave writing and sat in Google Docs then.
That process began with book 1.
And I don't know where that evidence is. Hold on, let me try to pull it up because I was like, if this is true, this is like sort of damning, right? Like, where is it? But like, why would you wait to bring that up? Hold on, this is the defendant's reply. Memorandum in opposition. Memorandum in support. Plaintiff's opposition to defendant's motion for summary judgment. I think.
Yeah, there's a whole paragraph about it on page 9 of plaintiff's opposition.
Okay. Yeah, here it is. Okay. This is plaintiff. The evidence here is even more compelling as it is beyond reasonable dispute that Kim was actively involved in the creation of the Crave series. She not only created Google Docs for chapter titles and outlines and started the Crave series Bible. That's not disputed. Everybody agrees that Kim helped. Kim did those things. And nor are the chapter titles being alleged as part of any sort of copyright anything. But actively participated in writing with Wolfe. For example, after Wolfe told Kim she has a whole new chapter to write and is exhausted, Kim replies, quote unquote, "Do you want to write together again?" And Wolfe replied, quote, "There's some misspellings in here, so I'm just going to correct them as I speak. Want to get in a Google Doc and help me write? I'm falling asleep," unquote. In other text message, Wolfe asked Kim, quote, "Want to get in Google Doc and help me write?" unquote. Kim tells Abrams, quote, "Tracy and I are team speed writing new scenes," unquote. In text messages between Kim and Pelletier discussing writing in the Crave Google Doc, Kim texts Pelletier, quote, "Tracy and I are working in Google Docs," unquote. Kim then sends Pelletier entire paragraphs followed by, quote, "Use this instead," unquote, seemingly indicating that those paragraphs should be included in the Crave book. At one point, Kim stayed up in, quote, "a Google Doc with Tracy for 19 hours a day while she was writing." Simply put, Kim was involved in writing the Crave series from the beginning and co-wrote the books in a shared Google Doc, and Wolfe has admitted that the Crave series was a group project. Access is thus clear. That's what plaintiff is saying. Why in document 326? Why was that not in their motion for summary judgment? Why is that in plaintiff's opposition to defendant's motion for summary judgment on plaintiff's state law claims? Why is that the only place that exists if that is represented how it actually occurred? That's my question.
Appealable error.
Because if you look at defendant's reply in support of motions for summary judgment, memorandum of law in opposition to Mr. Summon the copy. So they filed on 2/8. So this is filed a day before their response to the other motion for summary judgment. And I read this and did not see that paragraph. I did not see that anywhere in the
Not
alleged
in the complaint,
facts.
not in the amended complaint, not in the second amended complaint.
And if I missed it, someone please let me know, because I'm going through it again to see if I can see where they would put that, talking about access. They're talking about Pelletier being an intermediary, because there's some legal language regarding direct intermediaries, who provided input into the creation of Wolfe's Craves, including through Google Docs. They're alleging that a fact finder could and should conclude that their input was far more significant than they claim. They ask them why they haven't produced the Google Docs evidence detailing each defendant's specific changes. They're basically saying that because they didn't produce that makes that's a evidence of guilt, right?
Right.
Wolfe and Pelletier, I should note, say over and over and over and over and over again that they never actually received or read a copy of Blue Moon Rising. Just want to make that clear nor were informed of its contents. They say that the first time they ever heard of Lynn Freeman and Blue Moon Rising was when they received the demand letter in 2022.
Yeah.
So make that clear.
Right.
So my point is I'm reading through this and they're talking about, they have a strong motivation to lie. They have all this sort of stuff. They're talking about the Google Docs, but they at no point talk about these text messages and stuff that's in this other document that's filed a day before. Why, if that is your smoking gun, because that would be a smoking gun if that is actually how that occurred.
Right. Well, so consider footnote number 8 from Kim and Prospect's motion for summary judgment, right? Their attorneys, the agency and the agent, discuss the plaintiff's argument that certain texts from Kim indicate that Kim helped write the fourth book, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the text messages, according to them, do not actually say that. Rather, they support the deposition testimony. And here's a direct quote. The deposition testimony and declarations of Kim, Tracy Wolfe, and Liz Pelletier that Kim sat up with Wolfe online during a key few-day stretch when Wolfe was finishing court, helping her stay awake and acting as a cheerleader to keep Wolfe motivated. Kim did not author any part of Wolfe's books beyond suggesting chapter titles or minor edits in the role of an agent.
Yeah. I have to wonder if these are put together to help craft a story that makes it look suspicious in the same way that the complaint was written that made it look suspicious. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's where I don't have the underlying deposition testimony to read to be able to pull out what the context of some of these quotes are from.
Right. It's the nuance of a civil suit like this, right? Your
Yeah.
questions of fact versus your questions of law, right? So, um, I think this is either strategically really artful, confusing pleading or just really bad lawyering, one or the other,
Yeah.
on the plaintiff's part, designed to create a question of fact so that the judge has to pass on this and say the jury has to hear this. I cannot make summary judgment rulings in anybody's favor here. And this case does need to go to trial. I really think it's an attempt to muddy the waters that way.
I think it is too. I really do, because it just seems to me, if that were actually, as an attorney, I'm taking depositions, I have all of that in front of me. That would literally be the first line in, like, I would hammer that home regarding access, because that's the biggest key here. If there's no access, there is no case. So if there's no access, if there's nothing, if there's anything proving access, I am 1000% riding on that and hammering it and hammering it.
Sure.
So,
well, and let's not forget the complete failure of the plaintiff's attorneys to definitively point to not only when the conspiracy was, when the plan was hatched, but why, right? They have this very murky theory that it's based on Kim's desire to somehow enrich herself by having a commercially successful book with an author whose career was in decline.
Right.
But we don't know when the conspiracy was hatched or when it was allegedly started to be acted upon. And Lynn Freeman testified to that in her depositions.
Yeah, she testified she doesn't know. And she testifies that she thought that Kim was working in her best interest the entire time. So, and she had no indication otherwise. She testified to that. So it's unclear. The one zing from the defendants was the obvious difference. This is a quote from document 298 on page 37, by the way. The obvious differences in writing style and quality beg the question of why Wolfe, who has written 70 novels and multiple bestsellers, would want or need to copy from Freeman. It might also explain why over 20 publishers turned down Blue Moon Rising.
Mic drop.
That was harsh. That was harsh. There's another mic drop in here that I wanted to read too, because
there's one that had us both in stitches.
It really did. We could have been punchy. I mean, we're still punchy. We didn't even talk about the fact that, okay, the court, she files this lawsuit and files this lawsuit. She does not file a manuscript with the lawsuit. She just files all of what you saw, all of the exhibits of alleged similarities. It takes her several months to file. I think it was like 5 or 6 months to file a manuscript. Only after the court demands that she do so, demands that she picks 2 manuscripts. That's why we're talking about. Sometimes you'll see reference to BMR 2011 or BMR 2013 because there's 2 different manuscripts that she submitted out of the 10 to 15, 45, or 50 manuscripts that exist, right? So she asked her to pick 2. She picks 2, finally submits them. The reason that that's important to note of the delay in filing them is because by delaying that filing, it made it so that the defendants could not file a motion to dismiss. Because in a copyright case, you can file a motion to dismiss if you have so a copyright case is if you have one document and the other document and you can compare them. You could file a motion to dismiss instead of an answer. And if your motion to dismiss is denied, then you would have time to file the answer. Because they did not have the manuscript at the time of filing the complaint, the defendants were not given the opportunity to file a motion to dismiss. They were stripped of that opportunity.
They were procedurally outgamed.
Correct. And then she was forced to file a manuscript, she was forced to pick 2. Then later, in one of the many myriad of filings, the plaintiff now asked the court to consider 6 versions of the copyrighted manuscript, along with 9 sets of her copyrighted notes. There's a footnote. Plaintiff claims that she has done this in part to attempt to match the overall page count. This ignores the obvious difference between bona fide sequels and mere revisions to a standalone novel. So she claims that she was trying to submit these additional manuscripts because she wanted to reach the similar page count of the Crave 4 novels, which is like over 800,000 words. But obviously that's different than a novel that's been one novel that just multiple iterations versus multiple different novels. However, 3 of the manuscripts that she's trying to submit were created after Freeman ended her relationship with Kim in March of 2014. Then there's some argument about the metadata over those.
And whether or not the creation timestamps and dates are accurate, or if they're just about the last time they were accessed and saved, and if they really are from before she ended her relationship with Kim and Prospect, or if she created them subsequent to her relationship with Kim and is just now using them as evidence, even though they're arguably completely irrelevant.
Yes.
It's pretty wild.
It's wild.
So then we have metadata experts also entering the chat here.
And there is no evidence. Okay, so the defendants say that the last manuscript that Kim received was in 2013 from Freeman. There is no evidence produced that is incorrect. There was contact between Lynn Freeman and Kim in 2015, like emails. But nothing says that there was a manuscript attached to any of those emails that went back and forth in 2015.
Yeah. Their communications indicate that Lynn had actually taken the manuscript and turned it into a completely different book. She'd gone a totally different direction with her ideas and her notes. Maybe not an entirely different direction,
but a similar direction.
Substantial overhaul to the plot within the same genre. Lots of changes.
I wonder if I can find that, if I have that. The manuscript draft Freeman sent Kim on July 30th, 2013 was the last new version Kim ever saw. On October 10th, 2013, Kim submitted Freeman's manuscript to Entangled, Holiday House, Thomas Doon, and another editor at Penguin, and then later 2 submissions to Carol Rhoda and Scholastic. By February 2014, all of the publishers except Entangled had rejected the manuscript. With respect to Entangled, Kim sent a query to Liz Pelletier, who referred the query to Stacey Abrams. Abrams then emailed Kim and asked her to send a copy of the manuscript, and Kim did so on October 30th, 2013. On March 25th, 2014, Freeman terminated her relationship with Kim and Prospect Agency, noting that I don't believe Entangled will want Blue Moon Rising as it is, and asking Kim to withdraw her manuscript from Entangled, which Kim then asked her assistant to do, and she did. After Freeman and Prospect Agency terminated their professional relationship in March 2014, there was no contact between the parties until this dispute arose, except once in 2015 when Kim emailed Freeman just to touch base, and in the exchange, Freeman stated that she had, quote, really needed to take some time away from Blue Moon Rising. She calls it the other title in this, but for sake of consistency. Blue Moon Rising, and then get perspective. The story just didn't work. I've created a new story using parts of Blue Moon Rising that I loved and a completely different mythology with Egyptian gods. Not quite done, but very close. After the termination of the relationship, Freeman never sent Kim any further copies of her manuscript. Again, the last new version Kim had received was in July 2013. So, yeah. And there's no evidence that she sent it anywhere else but to Stacey Abrams that one time in 2013. Yeah. Plaintiff seemed to allege that Kim planned in 2010 to steal plaintiff's work and deliver it to Wolfe immediately, and even induced plaintiff to enter the agency agreement in order to do so. But at her deposition, Freeman conceded that I don't know when she started developing a plan to show my manuscript to Tracy. She claimed in her summary judgment papers, the plaintiff seems to assert that the purported sharing of materials didn't occur until 2019 or 2020. There's just, it's a lot. I know we've been talking about this for almost 2 hours, but it's a lot.
It's complicated.
It is very complicated.
There's a lot of nuance to it.
There's so much nuance. And like, listen, if the book was actually plagiarized, obviously I am all about catching
Absolutely.
plagiarizers. I probably should have said that at the beginning and not 2 hours into this. But you need to look at every claim and see if it's credible. You need to see if the facts support what actually happened. Because oftentimes, true, also, what you know happened and what you can prove happened are two different things. And the court only cares.
That's what I think happened here.
That's what you think happened here?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that this is a case of Lynn being convinced in her heart of hearts that her manuscript that is precious to her was ripped off by this woman and and entangled.
Yeah.
And given to someone else. She can't prove it because it may or may not have actually happened. She's convinced that it did.
And she's convinced it did. Yeah.
She's going to the mat for that. I mean,
I have to wonder.
How much money do you think she has spent on her attorneys prosecuting this case?
$500,000 at least. $500,000 at least. There's reference in one of the documents that the defendants have spent millions with an S. I believe that. Yeah, wholeheartedly. I believe that. So Lynn has to have spent at least $500,000, probably close to $1 million, if not more.
I think that's absolutely fair. And nobody does that unless they have a firm conviction or they've been sold a bill of goods about how easy it's going to be to recover that money later as a part of the lawsuit.
Yeah. I have to wonder how in touch Lynn is with the type of book that she is writing. How many of these titles has she read? How many, you know what I'm saying? Like, how many, she says that she's gone to writers' convention, she's done writers' workshops and things like that. So you have to understand, tropes and genres and all of that. Because a lot of what she's claiming is similar to all of the books in the genre. I mean, I literally just read a series that had gargoyles and, shifters and, fairies and all of that in there as well. And I could pull, and she was 17 and her parents died. And you know what I mean? Like, that's the nature of these books.
Ubiquitous to the genre. These are very common elements that do not constitute anybody's individual intellectual property.
And that book was the one that I'm talking about, was published before, when she was talking, about this with Kim. There's been some good zingers in here, and I'm trying to find that other mic drop one that I found very interesting. I'm trying to find the one where we laughed so hard. Well, one that I did find funny is where they're talking about how it took Wolfe a couple of months to draft each Crave book, and they said, which is relatively slow by her standards. I thought that was an unnecessary, inclusion. Made me laugh.
Maybe it's the footnote from Kim's motion for summary judgment when when her attorneys are arguing against Lynn's right to bring both a claim for fraud and for fraudulent concealment. And The attorneys write in the footnote, it's unclear how allowing the prospect defendants to shop her manuscript to book publishers could be deemed an act of reliance leading to any injury to Freeman, as presumably her own intent in hiring an agent was to shop her manuscript to publishers. There
Yeah.
is no evidence in the record that allowing the prospect defendants to dutifully shop Freeman's manuscript harmed her in any way. And you have to have some form of harm to bring a claim like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I did find it though. That was one of them, but this one is the one that we were like, oh wow. Like this was top tier legal petty right here. This is from the defendants. Document 342, starting on page 19. Plaintiffs make no serious effort to controvert defendants' showing of independent creation, including the truth of Crave's genesis and Wolfe's unrebutted testimony of how she came up with major concepts like Alaska and Katmere Academy. Plaintiff's theory that defendants took the time to mine numerous Blue Moon Rising versions for nuggets to steal remains unsupported and implausible. So does the notion that anyone would want to steal from a 50 times revised manuscript rejected by numerous other publishers.
That was the one. That was the one.
That was
like,
the one.
No one else wanted this. Why would Tracy steal from it?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Whew, that was a zinger.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Shots fired. So, what have we learned from this 2-hour dissertation? Yeah, it's
genre standards and tropes aren't copyrightable.
Absolutely, we've learned that. You're going to spend a lot of money if you want to
fighting for your principles.
Fight for this. Fight for your principles. I don't think I think at best she's hoping for settlement, but I don't think she's going to get it. I feel that Entangled is going to take this all the way. I would be surprised if the judge let this go past the motions for summary judgment. I think that they're going to grant motion for summary judgment in favor of the defendants, and this is going to be done, and everyone is going to, move on. And then she'll be able to file her appeal. And the lawyers are all going
to take a really great vacation with the money they just made.
Yeah. Millions, guaranteed millions and millions of dollars. There's the motion for summary, there's some strategy involved for some, for the way that you file certain pleadings. I will say that I was not as impressed with the plaintiff's motion for summary judgments as I was with the defendant's replies to motion for summary judgment. They were just better researched, better laid out, made things understand a little bit better. So I don't know, but I don't see any there. I don't.
That's the thing, right? Like, it's all, to the extent that there's any truth here, it's all circumstantial, and the evidence just does it. To come to the conclusion that Lynn Freeman is asking the court and or a jury to come to is a huge stretch. Huge stretch. Based on everything we've found in the docket and the supporting documents.
Right. And if there is evidence that she was there at the beginning in the Google documents, typing in the Google documents, if that is actually true, then why did we wait until the last hour to mention that? Why is that not your smoking gun that you are leading the charge with? Because again, if there is access, you have to prove access in order to prove that any of the rest of it is true. Because if there is no access to the manuscript, then it doesn't matter. She came up with this on her own.
Where are those documents with Google's record of all the changes that were made to them and saved to their cloud drive as the doc was being used online by two different people in two different places with two different ISPs and two different IP addresses and all of that shit?
There is a footnote where they do address that. Let me see if I can't find it. Defendants, yeah, here it is. I like that I can just turn to these documents now. Defendants did not destroy or withhold the alleged Google log, which simply was not present in any custodian's files. Among many issues with plaintiff's untimely spoliation claim, she ignores that there is an actual test for spoliation sanctions. Parties seeking sanctions must show an obligation to preserve destruction of evidence and that the records were destroyed with a culpable state of mind. So what I get from that is that they weren't requested.
And then when it finally came up and was germane to the arguments being made on summary judgment, it was too late. So
Yeah,
she throws the old spoliation claim at it, and there's just not enough support for that either.
that's what I gather. So who knows? I just, from the facts that we have, I don't think there is enough to show that access was there of the Freeman manuscript. And also, just from a common sense standpoint of why, right? Why?
Right. Like if Kim was hatching this plan to steal this manuscript from Lynn to begin with, why would she have gone through the motions of working with her for over 3 years? Why
Yeah.
would she have requested edits and revisions and additional content and chapter synopses and multiple versions of the manuscript? Why would she have shopped it?
Why? Yeah. Why would she have
Why
submitted
would
it?
she have sent it to anybody? Why wouldn't she have just lied to Lynn and said, I sent it, it got rejected, you need to find someone else to work with?
But not
I,
actually sent. Yeah.
right. You know what I mean? Without
Yeah.
actually sending it out.
Right. What is her benefit here? Because she got paid from it. Obviously, Tracy can write a book.
Well,
She's
and
written 70 of them.
from a production standpoint, you and I discussed this before we started recording. It does not make sense for Kim helping Tracy or for Tracy herself as the author to go back through anyone else's work and just pick and choose different things to pull out and add to her manuscript. That's a shit ton of work.
It's a ton of
It's a
work.
pain in the ass. She
Yeah.
can just sit at the computer and make up whatever she wants and have an editor, developmental or otherwise, backfill and make changes as she goes along. She doesn't need to steal from somebody else
Right.
for creative content or for little slices of dialogue and for common turns of phrase and idioms that all of us use, but that are especially popular in this particular genre.
Correct.
I mean, it's a stretch.
It's a stretch. It's real stretchy. So again, I understand.
Like LuLaRoe leggings, is that what you said?
I think that's what I said. I made a couple different I made a couple different analogies when we were chatting before. I think it's,
also from the 2010s.
yeah, that's what I was pulling from.
Yep.
It's just, it really is a stretch. And if there were any evidence, like real evidence other than conjecture to support, it's hard to say out of, 40 some thousand documents, there's not a shred of evidence that you talked about Freeman, that you talked about this other book, that there was any other book reference coded, nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Right. Well, but Heather, maybe the defendants just hid those documents. Maybe they're concealing the evidence. Maybe they didn't
pulled
turn
her
everything
hard
over.
drive. They pulled her fucking hard drive.
That's my point. Like no stone unturned here.
Yeah. No stone unturned. So I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think it's there. I think this has been an extraordinarily expensive exercise. And the only winners are the lawyers. They're the ones walking home with money at the end of the day. I think she thought that they would settle. I genuinely believe that Lynn Freeman thinks that she was ripped off. I genuinely believe that that's what she thinks.
I agree.
I also genuinely believe that she doesn't understand the industry and how things and her genre that she's writing in.
And that she hired a law firm who was all too happy to take her money and file a claim because there is enough evidence to make one, but there may not be enough evidence to sustain one.
Correct. And I think
there are lawyers out there who are all too willing to get paid that way.
Well, and the law firm likely thought, okay, there's deep pockets here, right? We can get a settlement. We
Sure.
can settle some
Sure.
claims. We can get some money out of
We'll get to
this.
discovery. There'll be something that supports our case that we find during discovery, and then we'll go to mediation or arbitration, and this will all be over with.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
No.
Hasn't happened.
Hasn't
Could
happened.
still happen, but it seems unlikely.
Yeah. So I don't see it. I do not see
Moral
it.
of the story, I guess, is, you know, have deep pockets if you want to be principled, and also if you're, you know, if you're going to accuse somebody of plagiarism,
Have something
make sure you got some really solid evidence of that first.
right. Listen, not to say that this could never happen, right? Like this could potentially happen.
Sure.
But I don't see any evidence of it happening in this particular case.
To be perfectly honest, I'm not convinced that it didn't happen. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I am
sure.
just not convinced that there is a solid legal claim here for damages, injunctive, and declaratory relief.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not convinced that it didn't happen, but I don't know. Once I read the plots of the two stories, that really solidified it to me. They are not the same. They are not the same. And without the actual manuscript underlying to be able to read both and make my own determination, that's what I have to rely on and I have to rely on it from the defendant's point of view because they're the only ones that gave it to me. They're not the same. They're not the same. And the plaintiffs had multiple opportunities to dispute that that's not what the summary is of the book, and they haven't. So I have to rely that is what the summary of Blue Moon Rising is, and it's not the same. Sounds like a potentially good book. Interesting story and plot line, but not the same. And, you know, as much as the lawyers poke fun at like Lynn Freeman for not being published and having, you know, all these rejections and all of that.
Right.
That doesn't mean that the book is bad. People get rejected all the time because of timing and things like that.
Sure. Commercial interests just aren't viable, whatever. Like
there's zingers.
Lots of good books never see the light of day.
Right. There were some good zingers in the lawsuit, and I understand why they're putting them in there, and I can appreciate them for what they are because petty my name is lawyer. Somebody was annoyed that they were having to do this, and they let that fly. But that doesn't mean that the book itself was bad. There's, you know, plenty of information here that it's good. Even Kim said that she enjoyed it. She thought it was good. That's why she was shopping it. That's why she was working with her.
Feedback from one of her readers that it was like a read in one sitting kind of thing, that it was compelling and enjoyable and not a bad story at all. Just not what publishers were looking for when she was trying to sell it.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Happens all the time. So I hope
shame.
It's a shame. And if you've stayed this long, bless you.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
Oh my goodness.
And I hope that this provides you some sort of an insight into this case that I have immersed myself in. I didn't even note, but did I say this at the beginning? I don't think I did. Lynn Freeman filed a lawsuit against Amazon. And
you and I discussed that. You and I did not discuss that here.
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, and Costco. And 1 to 10
trying to enjoin them from selling the books while her lawsuit against Tracy and the publisher was pending.
Yeah, that case was stayed pending this one's outcome.
Shocker.
So, but she didn't file that case until June of last year. So she waited a year and 3 months to file that case. She should have filed that all at once.
Almost like her attorneys don't know what they're doing.
I don't know. I don't know what the strategy is, right? Like, it's confusing. I'm confused.
Maybe we don't know enough about IP law.
That's possible too. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's weird, right? Like, I found that odd. And I read all of this oh wait, there's more. I read all of this so you didn't have to. And that's my 2-hour summary. I'm sure I missed some things.
Y'all, she was already studying this and taking notes yesterday when she told me this is what she wanted to talk about today. She's like, She sends me one document and then she goes, "Do you want the motions for summary judgment?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." Like, how else am I supposed to contribute to this unless I also get a clear look at where we're at right now?
Okay, so I only saw the one
She's
document.
Like highlighting and tabbing and scribbling notes, and
I only saw the one document at first. I did not know what I was getting myself into when I decided, when I said this is what we're doing. Okay. Did not know what we were jumping into.
Alice in Wonderland out here.
Yeah, rabbit hole that I fell down. I did not know what I was getting into.
For
So
sure.
I saw that one document and I said, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. Because there's been a lot of talk about it on social media. And I thought that our perspective could help, those who are trying to understand this. And hopefully it has, if you're one of those. So,
but don't come for us if the judge rules in Lynn's favor, because
they could.
We
the
have
judge could
no control over that.
And the judge could say there's enough bullshit in here that I'm just going to send this to a jury and see what a jury says.
In the judge's defense, I almost think that's what I would do if I were sitting on the bench right now, because I'm not looking to be overturned on appeal.
Right. Which inevitably Lynn's going to appeal this if she loses on summary judgment. 100%. This is going to appeal. So, yeah, it could go either way. It really could. And that's why there's no ruling yet. So.
Yeah, almost 3 months into the summary judgment process, we still do not have a ruling.
It's been longer than that, I think, right? Oh, wait, no, you're right. From February of this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's now the end of June.
I imagine there will probably be a hearing in another 3 months and they'll do arguments and then there will be a ruling. So we'll probably have a ruling before the end of the year.
We'll revisit it as soon as we can.
Gotta love how fast these things go. But yeah, I did not know what I was getting into when I jumped into this.
I just thought I was going to skim a couple of pleadings last night while listening to a couple of old geezers argue on the TV.
Same.
And nope, it was way more than that.
I suddenly was transported back in time. So anyway, if you've hung out with us this long, I appreciate it. Yeah, the bad old days.
Oh my God. I'll stop talking so you can wrap up. Yes.
No, it's all good.
With us. If you're still here, thank you. We both appreciate that.
And we certainly did not mean anything. If we said anything super inflammatory or offensive, we certainly did not mean it.
I apologize right now.
Oh, no, it's fine. I mean, you get fired up about these things and shit happens. It's the nature of these things. But thank you for staying with us. And I hope you learned something today and that we did summarize this for you. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'm happy. I read this thing, so I'm happy to go back through.
He's prepared, y'all.
I know where everything is. I'm highlighted, so we can talk about it some more. But until next time.